welcome to The Good Pod, where today we're talking about The Good Wife, Season 1, Episode 6, Conjugal. I am one of your hosts, Jason Reed. With me, as always, my co-host, Marissa Garza. Marissa, how's it going?
Jason, you said conjugal as like the vibe in which that room was. It was very like very serious, very sparse, very there. I was not expecting this type of visit to happen so soon, and neither did Alicia, I think.
Marissa, I'm a little disappointed in you.
Why?
Okay.
Again?
Yeah,
What?
I have to tell you, I'm not Jason. I am his cousin. It's not yeah. Come on in. Yeah. Wow, Marissa, you really failed that test. That was my cousin Jared.
Oh my gosh.
It's me.
Jared.
I'm back now. Yeah,
Jared,
I'm
how many
back.
podcasts
It's
have I done
me.
with Jared?
Not this is the first. I wanted to test you, and you failed with
I'm
flying colors.
sorry. I'm
Wow, that's
sorry.
upsetting. You didn't even know your podcast co-host. Wow. Check your bias at the door, Marissa. Check it at the door. Anyway, yeah, this conjugal wasn't the conjugal you would expect, and not the conjugal I think Peter was expecting. I think Peter was expecting a little something, like a little gratitude for his information, and he got a handhold at the
Okay,
most.
I'm just gonna get my bias out of the way from the beginning. The fact that married people can have these visits in prison bugs me up the wazoo because, like, what if you're not married? What, you can't have like a friend visit? You can't have like a visit that's not being watched by everyone and their
You
mother?
can't just have an overnight slumber party with friends when you're in prison. Like,
Exactly. Yeah, why not? Like, that's basically what it is. Like, he said we were at camp. I mean, honestly, like, I know what goes on at a conjugal visit. I'm not saying that, but like, why is this like the again another privilege of being married? You get a tax break, you get people to visit you in marriage, which is jail.
marriage is like a prison sometimes, I will say. As a married man, it can be like a prison. So you
I
were
just
spot on there, Marissa.
I just had to get that. It bugs me so much because this was such a privilege that she had in this case. I love this episode for like its commentary on the justice system, except for
Yeah.
this
I mean,
one
how much
part.
privilege do you want to give people, Marissa? Like, you want to have the ability to have friend visits overnight? Like, is that
Yeah,
what you want?
yeah,
Yeah,
people are
no.
people.
I
Well,
feel
first of all, I
I
would
do.
like there to be no one in jail. Like, let's get that.
Yeah, I
That would be
mean,
my preference.
that'd be nice. But we can't just give everybody fun little visits. Everyone would be signing up for them all the time, and it wouldn't feel like prison. It wouldn't feel like a punishment. I understand the conjugal visit of it all. Sometimes you miss your wife, but yes, most like you said, you do miss your friends too. I could just hang out with your homies while you're in prison.
Well, and I want to know the statistics of how many conjugal visits are granted to men versus women because it'll always be like the man misses his wife, but what about a wife who misses her husband? Or a woman who misses her woman, or a man who misses her man, or a them that misses a them. Like, what are the rules here, and what are the stats? We have to get down to the bottom
We're,
of
we're gonna we're gonna have to do our research.
investigations.
We're gonna have to do our investigations on that and come back. We'll come back to you guys with the stats that I know you all are very very
Yeah,
curious about, and that you
I'm
all
sure
really
this
want to
is
hear
what you
about.
tuned in for.
Yeah,
Sorry,
yeah.
I just had to get it out of the way.
Listen, I appreciate it. Listen, let's don't get me started on the differences between Peter's prison experience and the
Yeah,
difference to Clarence's prison
yeah,
experience.
nope.
Either way, listen, we're gonna talk about The Good Wife, season 1, episode 6. We're already getting ourselves hyped up. We haven't even gone through the sponsor yet.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Uh,
Sorry, sponsors.
yeah,
What you got for us today,
this
Jason?
week this week I went out looking for a sponsor, and a big part of the episode was Chicago Bulls. So I said, hey, Chicago Bulls, you want to
You
get
just
your,
called them
your
up?
your brand out there, get your profile up. And they're like, what's it about? I said, don't worry about it, don't worry, just know that we'll be talking Chicago Bulls on this episode. I'm like, okay, fine. So Chicago Bulls team apparel store, shop your merchandise today, fit for any person of any portion of society, cops, bailiffs, murderers,
Stenographer.
lawyers, yeah, stenographers. All Chicago Bulls apparel fits for every person of every color, of every shift, of every model, every make, every criminal offender. Chicago Bulls team apparel. Get yours today.
Wow, that's a big get, Jason.
That's a big
Thanks
get.
for doing
Chicago
that.
Bulls.
Thanks for doing that
Yeah.
work.
Yeah, no problem. I had to go out there and find who would be perfect for this episode. So they decided to step on board.
All right. Well, happy to have him here. Other than that, should we just get into the case of the week?
let's get into it. This was a very like there wasn't a lot of personal like story this week for Alicia. It was pretty much a lot of very case specific, minus the mini conjugal visits you got.
Yeah, I feel like this was one of the Good Wife's more like we're going to tell the audience something about the justice system episodes as opposed
Mhm.
to like what's going on in Alicia's life. We get a lot of that in the next one,
Yeah,
but this one is definitely more focused on the court system itself. And so the firm has taken on the case of Clarence Wilcox, who was apparently being represented by legal aid. They weren't able to like finish the case, so they handed it off to Lockhart and Stern and Gardner. Gardner, Stern, Lockhart, Stern, our peeps. And it turns out that they have just a few minutes to put in a brief to kind of get an appeal going for this case. And one of the pieces of evidence that they're looking at is the fact that there's a TV movie coming out about this particular case, and it shows the character of Clarence Wilcox actually shooting someone in a robbery situation. This is, not great for the situation. Go
yeah. I
ahead.
mean, listen, you don't want to put something out there in the media that's going to pretty much like really criminalize your client before you actually get the case heard, and really kind of put it in the minds of the national public, which would include your jury, that your defendant is definitely guilty.
Okay, but they mentioned also that this like one of the things that the judge brings up later is the Scott Peterson case. And I don't know, like I'm in Illinois, I'm a Chicagoan. The Scott Peterson case was like a huge deal for me.
Mhm.
Do you know who Scott Peterson is, Jason? And do you know the story
Yeah,
behind the
he
situation?
killed his wife and unborn child, if I am correct, right?
And he was a police officer,
Yeah.
and there was a movie about him. So like this is very like timely of the time. Like when it first came out, it was very much
In
the
the
media
zeitgeist.
vibe at
Yep.
the moment. So anyway, so they go to Will and they say, "Hey, we have this new piece of evidence. Can we put it in a brief?" And he's like, "Yeah, if you got 48 minutes." And then Carrie's like, "Hey, Alicia, you type the fastest. What was
Yeah.
that
You,
about?"
you went to typing. You had typing in school when you were a youngin', right? Your old self. You typed on typewriters and all that good stuff. So you're good at this. I did love the very like fast paced motion of this, all like really showing us how things can be, how kind of like on the second the system can be like, if you don't have it
Mhm.
in by 5 exactly, we're not going to take it at 5:01. We're not going to take it at 5:02. We can only take it before 5 o'clock on the dot.
And
And
I
how like
did.
fast they had to do this.
It was a good play by Carrie to make the phone call while the email was being sent. But I also do not believe that they would be on Wi Fi. I feel like those computers would be hardwired in, but that's another story for another day.
I
So
mean, now they'd be on 5G or something. They'd be on like LTE. Like it would go through like
something.
in seconds. Yeah.
Yeah. But I mean, it just, you're in a basement. Why, or not in a basement, but you're on like the lower, I don't know. It was weird.
Get those
Any,
Ethernet cables hooked up.
yeah. Come on. Those T1 lines. We're throwing it back. Okay. So they get to the Supreme Court, and the judge hears like 2 seconds of Will's argument, which Alicia had like memorized in her.
Mhm.
She was like mouthing the words, and Carrie and her have a little cute little high five moment, which Alicia is a little like okay about this.
Carrie Carrie is such a weirdo because he's just like at this he gets like this weird thrill out of out of his competition with Alicia. Like he wants to take her down, but at the same time he's like little high fives. So he's kind of an odd duck here in these episodes we're getting.
I think he likes being a member of the team, and I think
Mhm.
that he realizes he can learn from her. But yeah, it is a little bit weird to have like I hate you. I don't hate you. I don't like you're my enemy, you're my friend going back and forth between the two of them. But that's kind of what makes it a little fun.
Yeah, I
At
did
this
like the little moment. I like the little moment when they were like teaming, like when they were both on the same side. And Alicia's like, "Well, this is weird." He's like, "Yeah, I'll compete next week." It's like all right, like Carrie and Alicia, like, who their bond will grow over time. But as of right now, it's interesting to see the little tete a
little
tetes.
little baby Carrie. He's still
Hmm.
growing. We meet Clarence Wilcox's wife, Patrice, was it Patrice or Patricia? Patrice? I think
I
it's
think it was
Patrice.
Patrice.
Yeah,
Yeah.
Patrice Wilcox. And she is doing like she gets wife of the year award in my book because she is really trying to do everything that she can to help her husband's case in this situation.
Which wife would you rather have? Would you rather have Patrice? Or would you rather have the wife from the case? Was it an episode or two ago who was bribing jurors to get her way? I think I'd rather probably have the first wife. I think it's bribing the jurors, doing the heavy legwork.
Well, I feel like that is privilege at work. Like she could do that and not
Mhm.
necessarily get in trouble, but we learned later that Patrice had like prior minor offenses on her record. So I don't know if she could be taking the big swings, but she could carry around a lot of a lot of photos and tell Clarence's story to everyone that came
Yeah,
across her path.
I really love Patrice doing the legwork, pounding the pavement, getting her story and her picture out. Like, don't you want to defend this nice man with his nice cute daughter? Like, don't you want to do that? I love the fact, and I love the reveal that both she went to this with she went to Carrie and Alicia with this little picture, kind of scam she has, not scam, but a story she has going for herself.
Let's talk about like the reactions though. So first of all, I want to talk about the daughter. Like I'm sure she's like tired. Like she loves her parents, but I'm sure she's tired of her mom. I could just see in her face she wasn't like, "Please, could you help me?" She was like, "Okay." Like
Well,
here we
it's
are
gotta be
again.
hard. It's gotta be hard for that kid because her
Yeah.
dad's been in jail for the last 6 years, so
Yeah.
she doesn't really even know her dad like that. So just like, yeah, help get my dad out of prison. I guess I don't know the man. I guess he's probably a good dad. He's probably cool. But yeah, you're right. She does have this like look of just like uninterest. She's like, oh my god, my mom does this all the time. Like,
Here
can
we
we
go
just get
again.
going, please? Yeah. But she obviously doesn't understand. Probably wouldn't understand the dynamics and the significance of mom doing this to get dad out of jail. But it was a very interesting way to go about it.
Yeah, and then Carrie was like, "What? It got to my heart." And I was like, "Oh, Carrie does have a heart. Look at that."
Carrie,
But
who's always like the shuckster, he's like, I kind of like her more now for appealing to both of us. Like that was smart. Like I love how Carrie can really like see a fellow hustler in Patrice.
yeah, but Alicia immediately thought it was a scam. And I thought this was interesting because in a similar situation. Not
Mhm.
It's not apples for apples, but she's a good wife in this situation. And so I thought that was an interesting response from her.
I mean, it shows she could be like a little jaded, a little like don't believe everyone that you hear. Don't believe this guy says he's innocent, but so does Peter. Peter also says he's innocent, but I'm not sure what to think of him. So I don't know what to think of Clarence and Patrice at this moment. Who knows who's telling the truth?
Right. That's true. So after that, go to Kalinda. Kalinda's got to help, right? Kalinda's there. That's her job. Kalinda does not want to help. Kalinda,
Kalinda, are you allowed to say no? Like, are you like, don't you work for this firm? Like, she's like, nah, I'm not feeling it. I'm not feeling good about it. This guy's a cop killer. Like, I'm not down for this. Like, are you allowed to do that? Like,
I
I
was
wonder if Alicia's thinking that. Like, are you allowed to say no to me?
I was
Are that kind of your
really
boss?
surprised because of like the cases we've seen so far have dealt with like how cops can hide evidence, how cops can skew things to make a case go their way. And in this case, Kalinda was still feeling a lot of loyalty to the cops she worked with at the state's attorney's office. And I thought that was, and especially as a woman of color, I was like,
Hmm.
you're not even just gonna like open the door. Not saying that all women of color are the same. They're not a monolith. I understand, but in this case, for Kalinda and what we've seen of this character, it was surprising for me that she didn't want to help in the situation. And she also said like, we called this getting an appeal on a hunch. Like this is not something that is has a lot of ground to stand on, and we're not like gonna put the wife. The wife didn't go on the stand the first time because she had prior. So this is like nothing that I want to be a
There's no
part
point
of.
to it. Yeah.
Yeah, which was interesting. I do love that when this happens though, and Kalinda's like, "No, I'm not helping," and then she ends up helping. Spoiler: she ends up helping later.
Well, and Kalinda throwing some shade. She's like, not everyone. People that have cute, sweet wives and cute daughters do bad stuff too. Alicia, like you should know this.
Yeah, yeah. So both Alicia and Carrie are put on the case after the Supreme Court has kind of said no to the first appeal. They were able to get a week basically to see if they could prove for another appeal. And so Carrie and Alicia are put on the case. They're teaming up by themselves. They go visit legal aid. This is when Carrie is impressed with Patrice and is like, hey,
Mhm.
good job. But we also learn that this case is connected to one of Alicia's biggest foes, biggest enemies, Glenn Childs. Glenn Childs was in charge of the original task force that dealt with Clarence Wilcox's case. So Alicia's immediately part of, like, bought in,
Yeah.
really wanting to be on this case.
I did like how they kind of portrayed the legal aid here. Like they weren't totally like inept, because I feel like sometimes when we have like legal aid stuff or public defenders on these shows, they're like, they're not really worth their salt. But I did like how it was like he knew his stuff. He's like, yeah, we didn't put the wife on stand because nobody would believe her because she does have priors and all that, and he does talk about the fact that he like recognized Alicia like immediately. He's like, Alicia, and your husband put Glenn Childs on this case, so he was the head of the task force. So I like how he knew his stuff. He wasn't like totally bumbling and inept.
So Alicia and Carrie continue their investigation by talking to the one eyewitness they have in this case, Tara the doctor, who's very, very, very convinced that she saw Clarence Wilcox shoot the store
Well,
manager,
shoot
the
the cop,
person. She, oh yeah,
the cop,
thanks. I was like very
and
convinced that she shoot the cop, shoot the cop at the robbery.
as soon as I saw Tara, I was like, okay, I know where this I know where this is going. I know what's gonna happen. I could probably write out for you the ending of this story and what the issue was. But I thought it was very smart in the way they were doing it. Tara, of course, is very insistent. Yeah, it was definitely that guy. I definitely know who it is. I could pick him out of any lineup. So yeah, at that point, I was like, okay, yeah, I know what's happening here.
Well, and I thought it was interesting the argument she made of, like, everyone has their job to do. Like, yeah, it's your job to do the defense, like, to represent the defense. It's the prosecutor's job to prosecute, but it's my job to tell the truth. Like, she's like really digging in on the situation and
Mhm.
not like even questioning if she has a different way to go about this.
Yeah,
It was interesting. And then the show comes in and tells us exactly what is happening in this situation. We have another one of Kalinda's favorite people, a consultant, coming in to talk to the firm about cross racial identification and how hard it is for people of different races. They put it as different races, like, identifying each other, which I think is true. But I think in reality, it's a lot of it's like skewed towards black people, unfortunately. Like, more black
yeah.
people are misidentified
I
than
mean, they have
other
Kalinda
people.
try and identify a white man, and she fails at it. So
Yeah.
they really want to make the point of it being, like you said, cross racial, and like I love Kalinda is just so dead set on hating on these consultants. Like, oh yeah, how much do you get paid? Like, Kalinda, do you want a whole pay scale of like all consultants in the city, what they all make, and what they compare, how they compare to your salary? The oh so great Kalinda. But I do love that at this point Kalinda does get a little humbled. That not even the great Kalinda is exempt from a little bias and inability to identify someone that she just saw. So I did like how she was kind of put in her place a little bit. I think kind of spurned her to be like, okay, well, maybe I don't know everything. Maybe I will help with this.
Yeah, she took action, right? Like, she took
Yeah,
action after she figured that out, which I was like, okay, I can get on board. She went straight over to the detective's office, I guess, and was like,
yeah.
hey, can you tell me about what's going on? And they were like, yeah, he was wearing a bull sweatshirt. And the lady just stood up in court and was like, hey, that's the guy who's wearing a bull sweatshirt. Like, let's say bull sweatshirt like 15 more times. And so as Kalinda was leaving the office, she kind of gets like a little nudge in the staircase by someone that she knew, and someone had left like the original, what they call six pack, which is the lineup that Tara was given to originally identify Clarence as the killer of the cop.
I do love this trope in TV shows where you bump into someone where you're there and then they don't say anything to you at all. They just stare at you and then walk off and then they've left you with something important. Why can't you just be like, hey, this is the thing? Like I don't understand that trope, that dramatic trope of like, I'm gonna stare at you really like intently and then just walk off. And hopefully you find the thing I left for you. What if you just left out of the stairwell? I was like, that was weird. And just continues walking down the stairway, not like looking around in her environment to see. He looked at me weird. Maybe he left me something interesting. Like I think it's so funny how TV shows do that with the just the intense staring.
What do you mean? That's never happened to you in real life?
That's never happened where someone just glares at me and like I'm supposed to infer from that like they've left me something important.
Next time
Someone goes,
someone bumps
"Hey,
into you, like, just
yeah, hey, I got
take in your surroundings.
yeah, hey, I got this thing for you. Am I helping your case? All right, have a nice day.
Like,
Bye."
in this case, from what I could see, from what the camera was showing us, there was no one else in the stairway. Like,
Right,
he
like
literally could have just given the envelope to Kalinda. Like, that
yeah,
really could have happened instead of orchestrating. What if this was a 5-person job? Okay, you could get the six pack. I'll put it in the envelope. You drop it in the stairwell, and then you go and bump into Kalinda. Like, it could have just
yeah.
been really
Like,
easy
hey,
peasy.
here's something that might help you. Like against this scumbag cop. Here you go. Have a good one. Like, why couldn't it have just been that?
Well, it's enough though to get a retrial in this case. So now they've opened everything back up, trying to see what they can do. Kalinda knows that she knows about this case. She knows enough. She's got to go visit Peter in jail. So let's talk about this whole situation with Peter looking forlorn in the yard of the jail. His life is so hard, Jason.
He's looking like he's like getting ready to shoot the cover of his next like R&B like single. He's just like he's standing up against the brick wall. He's like, man, life is hard here in the federal penitentiary where my buddies are playing b-ball. And, it's tough life out here. Like he's so sad and forlorn, and then he gets a notice of a visitor.
Yeah, and of course, there's only one person that would visit him in jail. It would be Alicia. But in this case, no, it's Kalinda. And I do love Kalinda's attitude of like, I live in the gray area. I'm not going to take this like black and white type of,
Mhm.
thinking, especially after what she just kind of experienced with the cross racial identification. But she goes in and tries to get Peter to give more information. And Peter's like, hey, I can give you this information, but right now we're being recorded. So the only way that I can get this information to you, my friend Kalinda, is if there was a conjugal visit with my wife. How true? Like how
No,
what do we think the
Peter.
motives were here?
Yeah, Peter is such a schmuck, right? Because, like, first of all, who cares if you're talking to Kalinda about this case? Who cares if someone sees you on a recording talking to her about the case? That doesn't really matter to anyone. Like, the prison guards are going to be like calling up Glenn Childs, like, guess what? This is happening. No, they don't care. They're only caring about they're talking about breaking you out of jail. So this was definitely like a you scratch my back, I'll scratch yours back type of thing. Like, hey,
Yeah.
I'll give you some info, but give me a conjugal visit with Alicia so I can, I almost was like, the way Peter was like a little like, weird with Kalinda, I was like, well, maybe I can get a conjugal visit with you, Kalinda. I mean, what do you think about
It
that?
was gross.
Like
Yeah.
I was like, oh, what are you doing here, Peter? I was like, no.
No.
He's like, oh yeah, I guess I'll also take Alicia too if she wants to come on a conjugal visit. I
No,
do
thank
love
you.
Kalinda's. Kalinda talks about she's in the gray. She's not. I do also kind of just love the like, put on your big boy pants attitude of Kalinda. She's like, listen, I know that you have your little. She talks to Elise. She's like, I know you have your little emotional like, quandaries and whatever, but this is what it is. This is how it really is. I love Kalinda's like attitude about these type of things, and I do wish she would have ran it by Alicia though that she was going
Yeah,
to go
that
visit
would have
Peter.
been
Like
nice.
that probably would have been the best course of action to do this because Alicia does not take kindly to this when she finds out about it.
No, she does not. I did also enjoy the conversation between Peter and Kalinda, where Peter's like, politics is like, this could work out. This could work out that Glenn Childs is like blamed for the situation. And Kalinda's like, what I love about you is you're here for a 10-year sentence on month 3 and you're already thinking about politics.
That's privilege. He's like
It was
he
great.
knows he's getting out of this. He knows he's getting out of here. He's like, yeah, this is just a small bump in the road. Like, once I get out of here, I'm gonna be right back to my political aspirations and all that. And I love how Clinton called that. He's like, you're like, do you see where you are right now? Like, look up, look around. You are in a prison. Like, I don't know if you should be making these type of plans at the moment, but Peter's like kind of like a shark, kind of like Kalinda. So I think she can appreciate that about him.
Yes. And while Kalinda's in jail, Alicia goes to finally visit Clarence Wilcox in jail, which I have to say was a great call by Patrice because she was like, hey, would you like to meet the man that you're actually helping in this situation? Does it not matter? Does his story not matter? Does the fact that he didn't do it at all matter? And I think that really got to Alicia because she finally showed up here at the jail.
Yeah, because I mean, when Alicia meets Patrice initially, it's just kind of like, "Oh, what are you doing here?" Like, no, he's not even going to be here. Like, she's not real. I think probably Patrice kind of even knew that Clarence was like, she pretended to be surprised, but she just wanted to get some FaceTime in with this new, this new firm that's coming on the case, so she can hopefully get them to take better action than
Yeah.
legal aid's been taking. She wants to meet anyone and everyone involved in the case and to kind of play on their emotions in a way, which I think is a really good strategy for Patrice, especially since Patrice, from what she tells Alicia and us, knows for a fact that Clarence is innocent.
Yes. Yeah, because they were together the night of the
Yeah.
shooting. So, yeah, I thought this visit was interesting because you could really see the love between the two, Clarence and Patrice, in the situation and how it differs from when Alicia goes to visit
Yeah.
Peter.
It's like,
And
they're separated behind glass. Meanwhile, when Alicia visits Peter, they're just strolling the grounds outside of the prison. They're just like, they're all just able to just chill and talk one on one. Meanwhile, I mean, Clarence is on death row, but like, meanwhile, there's such a production in Patrice having to go visit Clarence.
yeah, and I don't think Clarence would get granted a conjugal visit with Patrice. I don't think that would
No,
happen.
not at all.
So, see, again, these conjugal visits, just like, it's going to be a big issue for me in election time. I'm going to be asking people about this.
But this,
Um,
but this is
but
also, but this is
yeah,
also where Clarence makes it clear, like, oh yeah, they had me stay in the in
yeah.
the in the sweatshirt for the mugshot, which is gets Alicia her like bing eureka moment, one of her eureka moments of the episode.
Well, because usually, I don't know, I have not been in a lineup nor have been asked to participate, like to identify someone.
I'm sure.
But
I'm sure your time's coming, Marissa. I'm sure you get
I'm
the
sure,
opportunity at
I'm
some point or
sure.
another.
But all I know about this is from like TV, and usually they are like all in the same clothing, or there's like some sort of similarity between, like, having a bull sweatshirt on is very distinctive.
Well, I
And
mean, especially in this specific case where like that's how the person was identified. I think you would have them take off the sweatshirt. I think that's only kind of common sense if you're going to be doing that. I think that's also part of the where the cop, wanted. I guess the cop's motives are just kind of getting this case like out of his hair. Which I don't think there was any like I don't think the cop was trying to pin the wrong person. I think he just figured he had the right person, just wanted to get this case done as soon as possible.
well, because he wanted to get justice for another cop. Like, he
Yeah.
wanted to like show people that we take care of our own. We're gonna find you. We're gonna, put you behind bars, but
Yeah, he wanted to
don't mess
push it
with
through the
us.
system. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. So we get to court, and Will is thrown quite a curveball by the prosecution here. It was interesting to see this group together. We had Judge Costa, who we had seen before. We had the two prosecutors, who I've been calling in my head Tweedledee and Tweedledum, but I know that's not their names.
I mean, one of them is Matan, who we saw before,
Yes.
and I just like I love the kind of the balls on Cuesta in several different ways. He literally at the beginning of this whole thing calls out Matan and Alicia, who Alicia is a second chair on this thing. She's not even left the forefront of the defense. He's just like, oh hey, look, it's my buddies, Matan, Alicia. Why don't you guys stand up so I can rail against you for the last time we were here, where you guys pulled some BS last time. I love how he just kind of called them out like that. And it was really hilarious. Cuesta is one of my is a great judge. I love that he's going to be popping up here and there, and just the shenanigans between him and also from Matan during this whole thing was really fantastic.
Yeah, because Matan's first move is like, hey, okay, we would just like to submit the transcripts from the last trial, and we rest our case. That's it.
That that was I didn't understand at first. He's like, the first time we did this, like that's all we need to say.
That's it.
So we're done. And
Yeah.
the look on Will's face, everyone's face is just like, oh shit, like oh my god, like what do you do now? How they were scrambling was so fun and so interesting.
It was also great how Will tried to stall for time, and then Cuesta said, "No, we're gonna do this." It looks as though you were served a bit of a curveball, like, by
Mhm.
the prosecution, and then Matan comes in. He's like, "That was my point. Like, wanted
Yeah,
to do.
yeah.
Like,
That's what
you
we're
called
trying
it.
to do, Your
Yep,
Honor.
that's it.
Thank you. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. Thanks. Thanks for seeing it. But then Will has to, and the team has to scramble to kind of get some people into court because they had told everyone, like, yeah, the prosecution's going to have like at least a day. Just be ready like tomorrow on to come into court. So they try to get people to come in. And it turns out like the only person that's really available to be on the stand today is the detective who Kalinda had visited, who had talked about the bull sweatshirt and everything. And I thought this was interesting because Will puts Alicia on the questioning here when Carrie had prepared for it. And we have talked about Carrie's like shyness and avoidance of being in court
Mhm.
and questioning people on the stand. Like he would do anything. He was like, I will plea bargain my way through the law. And so this time he had like prepared and he was ready to go. And he was even like on the edge of his seat and had his papers ready and had everything to go. And Will's like, Alicia, go ahead and take it.
Yeah, this I mean, listen, it's interesting to see like the kind of competition between Carrie and Alicia getting kind of revved up here, and we see the kind of Will's favorite and Diane's favorite are coming into play a little bit. Where Will's like, "Yeah, I know Carrie was prepared, but you're good for this, right, Alicia?" And she's like, "Yeah, sure." And we'll get into the reasoning Will gives later, but it's kind of smart. But I do like how Will's just like, "Carrie, you just go ahead and sit down, little man. Like the big girl's got this. Alicia's got this."
Yeah, well, we can talk about it now. Like the whole reason that Will wanted to do this is because he knows that Alicia and Matan have this like rivalry thing, and
Mhm.
he is intimidated by Alicia, and so this was like a strategic move on his part to kind of throw the prosecution off kilter as the prosecution had done to him earlier.
Yeah. Yeah, he knows Baton gets a little ruffled. His feathers get ruffled when Alicia is the one leading the questioning. So I think it was a very good strategy on Will's part. Also, Will really likes Alicia, so it's like,
Also, yeah, if anyone could make up a reason to put Alicia in front of Carrie, it's Will. Like he could,
mhm,
I'm sure he has like 500 different things that he could say that anyone would believe, including the audience. Like I
yeah,
really think he's in her camp and would do anything and sell it however he needed to put Alicia ahead. So the detective takes the stand, and again, the whole case, besides the eyewitness saying this man in a bull sweatshirt shot this cop, is this bull sweatshirt and the
yeah. I
fact
mean,
that it had
basically,
blood on it.
basically, he's a black guy in a bull sweatshirt. That's all.
Yeah,
That's
that's
all this
it.
comes down to. It could have been any black guy in any Bulls the sweatshirt, and it would have he would have been put in for this. Like that's the thing. That's what Alicia's trying to prove, that this was basically just a black guy in a bull sweatshirt.
Yeah, and the cop is like, "Well, it had blood on it, and he tried to take it off before, going into the lineup, so that's suspicious." He's like, "Oh, there was blood on it. Did it match? Was it a DNA match for the murder?" "Oh, yeah, we couldn't get a sample, so no." And then there was this whole thing about who had a bull sweatshirt in the 90s
Mhm.
because the bull sweatshirt ended up being key to the defense
Yeah.
strategy going forward.
Yeah, and I love how Alicia tackles this. She's like, and she at first she comes at it like, so let's say that you were in a basketball game and you had a bloody nose. That was Clarence's defense. He had a bloody nose. He was playing a basketball game and he just wiped his nose on his shirt sleeve, as you would do. I love how Alicia's like, so what would you do if you were in that position? He goes, I would wipe it on my, and he goes to do it. He's like, oh crap. Yeah, I mean, like, no, like that's
I
not what
would
we're gonna
lift my
do.
arm to put my
Yeah,
hand on my nose.
yeah, I didn't put it on my hand. You would have put your bloody nose on your hand, making your hand all bloody? That doesn't make a lot of sense. And like he basically just lies. Just like the detective just basically lies on the stand. Says first of all that he wouldn't have that he wasn't you doing the sleeve gesture. And then as you said, he tries to tell the judge, yeah, I don't own that type of I don't own any Bulls sweatshirt, any Bulls paraphernalia. What are you talking about?
He's like, I don't like the team. Which,
Yeah.
I mean, okay. Having lived through the 90s in Chicago, I will say I rarely did not meet a Bulls fan. But that does not
Right.
mean that they did not exist. That does not mean that they weren't around. But I will tell you, you could not escape buying Bulls merchandise. So, sponsor of the week really came through in the 90s because anywhere you went, there were Bulls clothing. But the judge really got in here. Cuesta was like, I have that sweatshirt. Who else has that
Mhm.
sweatshirt? That specific sweatshirt. And I was like, okay,
I mean,
okay,
but
everybody.
listen, like, yeah, listen, Quest is kind of trying to say, like, I don't know anybody. that's not a Bulls fan, especially cops. I'm like, I don't know if you could really use that as justification because I'm sure there are some cops out there that aren't Bulls fans that don't own Bills the Bulls merchandise. I'm sure
Yeah.
there are cops in Chicago that transfer from another city or state that actually hate the Bulls and would never wear any Bulls paraphernalia. So I don't know if I would really use that as true justification, Judge Cuesta, for your decisions here. I was a little side eyeing that. I was like, I don't know if you kind of lost me on this one here, Cuesta.
Or like there's a cop that always has to work at the United Center and there's always something that goes down and they just hate being there because they hate the Bulls because they're always it's like,
Yeah.
oh, them again.
Listen, God forbid there's a Chicago cop that's more into football than basketball.
What?
Okay, like
Well,
God
okay, that is
forbid.
it's a little rare. It's a little rare. I mean, if
This,
anything, they'd be a baseball fan over like our football team is not that great, Jason. I know you know this, but
y'all went to
the loyalty,
y'all
the
went to a
loyalty
y'all went to a Super Bowl around that time, around that
was
era
not around
with your
that time.
with your boy Rex Grossman. Once upon a
Oh my
time,
gosh,
I forgot
yeah.
what year that was, but that was not good for
Yeah,
your
that but
squad.
that was
There
not the
was.
90s when people were buying full sweatshirts,
Well,
but
this is
yeah.
no, this was in the night. This was like early 2000s would have been.
Right, but, like, the Clarence Wilcox crime that they're talking about happened 6 years prior to the time
Right. That would
the
have been
show
like
is in.
2003.
I don't know time.
You're not good at timelines. It's
I'm not
okay.
good at time. I was a history major. I don't know anything about this.
I don't know anything about times,
Like,
about years of things.
what? What? But anyway, yeah, it's okay to not be a Bulls fan, but not in Judge Cuesta's court.
No, if
Like,
you're a Bulls fan, get the hell out. Get out of
yeah.
my courtroom if you're not into the Bulls. I should say. I'm sorry, I keep saying Bills. The Bulls.
We do see a conversation back at the law firm with Diane and Will talking about Will's strategy of putting Alicia in first chair. And Diane makes a point here that I thought was interesting for and also shows that she's not a girl's girl in this situation because
Mhm.
she's like Alicia has a motive to like derail, Glenn Childs' career because that's what she wants to do. It's not necessarily all good intentions
I mean,
here.
little does she know that Alicia would probably rather like rather derail Peter at this moment in time than have a vendetta against Glenn Childs. Like she doesn't really care that much about helping Peter's political career. She's like, it's probably near the bottom of her priority list at this point. Like she doesn't really give a crap about the rivalry between Childs and Peter. She would probably like to see Charles go down because he embarrassed her, like kind of, but not to
Yeah.
save Peter. Nothing really about Peter that much.
Yeah. Well, and I think, but there is a little thing because they put it in the previously on about how Glenn Childs has more information on Peter. And so
Mm.
while it might not be like a personal vendetta against Childs, it's like, I don't want him to say more things that I don't
Yeah.
know about my family in front of the public that he's already done. But we also haven't really heard Alicia say that. It's just like an inference that Diane is making, an assumption at this point.
Yeah, I feel like for the most part, we from what we've heard from Alicia, she's really just kind of focused on keeping her kids right and keeping her and her kids like in a good situation where Alicia now has to make the money to support the family. So I think that's where her headspace is. I don't think her headspace is in too much of playing the political game here with Peter and Childs.
Yeah, she's not a shoots and ladders player.
Yeah,
She
but I
just
can
wants
understand
to keep things.
that Diane is looking for ulterior motives here, especially in support of her guy Carrie and and not in support of Alicia.
Yep, absolutely. So then Kalinda convinces Alicia to go on this conjugal visit.
Well, I mean, yeah, this is after Kalinda confesses that she went to go visit Peter.
Yeah.
And listen,
Yeah.
we don't see Alicia get riled up a lot in these early days, but this is one of the moments she gets a little riled up. She's like, "You went to go visit my husband in prison? How dare you? Do not." Because I think at this point, Alicia still thinks that Kalinda and Peter probably had a little something going on, and Kalinda kind of sets the record straight. She's like, "Listen, I know what you think, but what you think is not what happened. Like, I went to go visit him because like that's what's necessary for the case, like to get information here. Like,
Right.
there's nothing going on between me and Peter. Like, get that out of your mind." And like, I love Alicia's like kind of like silent fury. She's like, "Do not ever go visit my husband in jail again." Like, all right, damn. Like, we were friends. I can't go visit my friend in jail. I can't have a friend conjugal visit.
But also the case. Like, it's about the case. Alicia, this
Mhm.
was about the case. This was not about you. And I think it just shows how much Alicia's still tied
Yeah,
to Peter and still cares in
yeah.
that situation.
She even asked, like, "How often do you visit my husband in prison?" Like,
Yeah, yeah,
this is my first time. Like, I don't make it a habit to go visit Peter in prison. Like, we weren't tight like that. Like, we weren't buddies in that way, Alicia. Like, calm down.
yeah. So what do we think of this visit, Jason? It's in like the first of all, Alicia has to go through security. And I just have to say, Alicia was thinking that that like pat down was very invasive and like not great. Wait, Alicia, for a couple years until she goes through the TSA because for real, like that, I was like, that happens every day when you go on an airplane. So I don't know what to
Honestly,
tell you.
and I think real life visits to a conjugal, like for a conjugal visit, might be a lot more invasive than that. Like
Yeah.
maybe like a squat and call situation to make sure
Yeah.
that you're not bringing your significant other, your anything that they're not supposed to have. I think it's going to be a lot more invasive than like just like rant like a very passive pat down that Alicia got.
Yeah, I thought that was interesting. I wasn't expecting much out of the room, to be quite honest. It was very like windowless, like,
Listen,
but it was much nicer than I
they had some
expected it to
art.
be.
Has some art going on. Got you a nice little shower. I was like, oh, you can actually do something in here. Get some little Barry White going on in here. This could actually be a nice little love shack. Look at
Well,
this.
it
Like,
could.
yeah.
Yeah, but everything and they focused a lot on how everything is bolted down and it's like,
Mhm.
"Oh, look, it looks so like nice, quote unquote, but also don't forget you're in prison because you can't move the chair."
Yeah, we gotta talk about the panic button in case you need it. Like, I liked how the fact that first of all, Alicia's not getting out of there until 6 a.m. the next morning.
I know.
Didn't seem like she really had like a choice. Like, you are here until 6 a.m. tomorrow, whether you like it or not. But if something does pop off, you do have this panic button in here to like, and just in case things go a little too out of pocket, you can hit this panic button. We can get you the heck on out of here. But other than that, like the fact that you're I mean, I guess if this was a regular conjugal visit, you wouldn't mind. You would want more time than that probably, but in Alicia's case, she probably just wants the info and probably would more than likely like to just leave the situation.
Well, yeah, I mean, they don't like she makes him sleep on the floor.
Yeah,
Like there's like she does not
I'm
want
surprised.
anything.
Yeah, I'm surprised you didn't get more out of this than just what we got. I think they probably I would have liked them to spend a little more time with maybe Peter trying like trying to woo Alicia in this way, and Alicia kind of just really shutting him down, other than the kind of quiet shutting down we got from Alicia in this instance.
Well, I think what I noticed was like the conversation about the case is really what got Alicia. Like she was like looking at him, was kind of like
Mhm.
giving him some eyes when he was making the connections about the fact that the detective on this case actually planted a gun in another case and stuff like this. And this was like he it was one of those like his mind situations where it was
I think we
like, oh
found Alicia's kink. Like
yeah.
talk to me more about corrupt cops.
Yeah, exactly.
What do those dirty dogs do? They plant drugs, Peter. Tell me about planting drugs, Peter. Next, I think we really found what she's into. What really gets her motor running. You know what I mean?
Well, I think yeah, she's definitely an intellectual. She's attracted to the intellectual side of people, I think, in this.
I think she's also attracted to Peter doing things for the right reasons. You
Yes.
know what I mean? Like he's helping, you know, he's helping her case. He's helping get a innocent man off of death row. When I think in Peter's mind, this isn't really about this guy on death row. It's about getting in good with Alicia. Like
Yeah.
that's what's in it for him. But I think Alicia's kind of looking past that. She's like, oh yeah, Peter, he's doing what's right now. Like that's what I'm into. I like Peter doing the right thing.
I knew you were still there. You haven't changed. Yeah.
Yeah, little does she know that this is just to try and get in her pants a little bit.
Yeah. Well,
But
but like
he's only gonna get in her hand a little
well,
bit.
she's needed for his political career going forward.
Yes. Yeah.
So there's also that play that Peter's making as well. Then Kalinda and Carrie go investigating to try and find more information about other robberies and murders that were happening around the same time with the same type of description of the crime. What did we think of the pairing of Kalinda and Carrie in this scene?
Yeah, I mean, this is kind of the first time we're really getting one-on-one time with Carrie and Kalinda. I'm not even sure if they've really spoken more than a couple words to each other before this. But the instant like creepiness of Carrie, the way Carrie kind of is. She's just kind of like, hey, I want to know more about you. Like, what do you like? What's you? And Kalinda's like, no, no, we're shutting this down right now. Like, we're not doing this. We're here to work a case. Like, do not use your schmarmy frat boy charm on me because it's not gonna work.
I loved the what do you think we have in common? And Carrie goes, I like talking to people I don't have things in common with. And I was like,
The ultimate bonding
Carrie,
moment.
just settle down. Settle
Yeah,
down.
just be cool, man. Like this, try to not act like a dog with a bone in this moment. Like just be cool, be a person.
Well, Kalinda really does know how to motivate him though, because he says if you are able to figure this out, if you're able to find anything about the situation, I'll answer one question for you.
Yeah.
And this he's like, oh well, you just saved Clarence Wilcox's life. It's
Oh
like,
god.
okay,
Yeah,
okay,
because
Carrie.
you have no other motivation to save this man's life than getting more info about Kalinda.
Yeah, yeah. Shows you're really like tell that to Patrice and her how her photo moved you into being a part of this case.
Now I'm motivated.
Yeah. But Carrie does find a man who was robbed in similar circumstances and by someone who said kiss the floor, which is something that Tara had identified earlier in the episode as what she heard in the robbery that happened for her, where she saw, quote unquote, saw Clarence Wilcox kill a cop. So this is enough for them to say, oh, okay, something else is happening. Somebody else was doing this. It wasn't Clarence Wilcox. And it's even more obvious because this crime happened while Wilcox was in jail, so he couldn't have done it.
Right.
So good moves on Carrie for that one. They take the case, they take this to the court, and this is where Judge Costa goes, well, this is enough for me. This and the fact that all cops are Bulls fans, and so he perjured himself on on the stand.
Yeah. I do like they try it. They at first try to get like Shore's stuff like kicked out because he was accused at one point of planting a gun, which is what Peter gave to Alicia. And
Yep.
Maton's like, "Oh, is that what Peter said to you, Alicia?" It's like Will's like, "Hey, don't talk to my junior associate like that. You want to
Yeah.
talk to somebody, you talk to me." I was like, "Oh, okay, well." Defending your woman, get on it. So that was a great little moment for Matan and for Alicia there, like to be like kind of called out in that way. Because I mean, that's exactly what happened. Like Madonna is not incorrect. Like they he accused her of going to Peter before. She did exactly that. As you know, as offended as Alicia was the first time that they brought that up, like, oh, you think I'm going to my husband for information about cases? And then that's exactly what she did here. It's like, okay, yeah, maybe you're right. Maybe I am using my husband for my gain. But what of it? Who cares?
Yeah, but like on the other case, you guys hid evidence, and on this one, you have a detective that planted a gun. So it's like,
Those are
I,
glass stones shouldn't throw
yeah,
us. Those glass
yeah,
houses shouldn't throw stones.
yeah. So basically, Questa's like, okay, I don't believe you. You have enough to kind of get Detective Shore's stuff out of here, but give me until the morning till I will rule on the case. So the only thing really the prosecution has now is Tara's testimony of her saying it's that guy in the bull sweatshirt that did this. And so they decide to do the whole switcheroo and take the face of someone, the person who had done the crime that Carrie had found, that Carrie was talking about, and did a little Photoshop situation. I wonder if they called Zach
Yeah.
to help
Zach, we
with the
need your help
Photoshop.
again. Zach, we need you. Can you get
And
the spectral highlight analysis out of these people's eyes so we can switch the faces, please?
I thought this was an interesting scene because Tara was really, like, really, really, really convinced. And then she again identified the person in the Bulls sweatshirt as the person who killed the cop. And in this case, it was the face of the other person and not of Clarence Wilcox. And she really was like, she took that in. She really kind of was like, oh, okay. Yeah.
Yeah. And listen, like I said, when we first met Tara, I could tell that this was going to be the thing that came up in the tail end of the episode. I could, it's kind of an old TV trope that they pull you a switcheroo like this and get her to identify the wrong person. I was like, okay, yeah, they're going to call Tara in. She's going to identify the person all over again. It's not going to be Clarence. So yeah, I liked it, but I liked how they kind of did it here and how like Tara was so sure. She's like, it's definitely not that guy. It's like, oh well, that's like we just did the old photoshopping thing, and how crushed she was realizing that she had some sort of like bias that she wasn't even kind of aware of in that moment was a very interesting moment in this episode.
Well, even though I don't know about time, I feel like around this time there was a lot of
Mm-hmm.
conversation about racial profiling, like on
Yeah,
2020 and like Dateline and all of that
I'm
stuff.
sure there's a lot of
So
Law and Order episodes going on the
yeah,
same thing. Yeah,
yeah, yeah. So I feel like she was like, I'm not like that. Like that's not me. And then, oh, actually, it is. But I do admire what she did after that. She gets pulled, on the stand and corrects herself and says, "I can tell you with certainty that it was not." Clarence Wilcox, and apologizes to him on the stand. While this is great for Clarence, Judge Cuesta is not happy because it was originally his case that he was on. And so he's like, listen, fellas, you better fix this because I don't like when my cases are reversed. I don't like that at all. And I'm giving you the biggest out, which is basically blame this on Peter and put it on him as opposed to saying that you guys were corrupt in any way.
again, I was like, would a judge be telling anyone this? Would this be an actual thing that happened in everyday life? Like, would a judge be like, all right, here's what we're gonna do, y'all, so that I look good and y'all still look okay. We're gonna blame it on this lady's ex-husband or this lady's husband. Like, we're gonna do that. Like, would that really happen now? Would that really happen in daytime? No.
Well, I mean, I don't know. I don't know all the ins and outs, but there are some judges that are elected. So there are some judges that do have to worry about like their reputations and things like that. And if this is an election year or, close to it, he doesn't want this like reversal to look bad on him, like he missed this. And so
Please, can
blaming
we
it on
ask?
like just like pile it on Peter. We only got like 3 more months where we can do this. Let's just pile it on him.
But I mean, Alicia, you want maybe like step outside for a minute while we talk. Like, you see this lady's husband, blame it on him. The fact that she
Well,
was
Will's the one who said it. Like he was like, "I'm giving like the judge was like, I'm giving you the biggest out." It was like, I'll tell you, I'll read between the lines for you, and I will
yeah.
tell you what this man is saying."
Yeah, I just thought it was so interesting how like they just came right out with it with Alicia just in the room. They're just like, Alicia, could you go like get us some coffee or something? Like, hey, maybe just like step outside for a minute. Like she walks us like, yeah, just put it on it on that guy, on that lady's husband. Like, just do that.
Yeah, yeah.
So funny
And at the
how
end, we
blunt they were.
see Clarence being released from court and reunited with his family, and Alicia's like also creeping on this family while this was happening.
It was weird because we didn't actually get to see Clarence come out. It was just
Oh
like
yeah, no, we
it
just
was
heard the door open.
yeah, it was just Patrice and her daughter waiting outside for Clarence. And I was just wondering if Felicia was just like, maybe that'll be me, like sometime soon. Will that be me? I don't know if that would be me.
Right.
I don't know if I would be sitting at the door waiting for Peter. Like I think it also a lot of these cases we've had so far in these 6 episodes have been very like have skewed a little bit towards Alicia and her situation, and probably Alicia comparing situations and wondering what she would do in these situations. Whether she would stay the good wife or she would, walk away from the situation. So I think it was very interesting for her to like stand there and watch that. Both thinking like I helped do something really great here by reuniting this family, and also being like, if Peter got out of jail, would I be there waiting at the door for him? I don't know.
Yeah,
Interesting. I think it was a very like multifaceted situation for Alicia to be thinking through.
yeah. And we do see the press conference at the end of the episode where Peter is being blamed for this. And then Will's like, "Are you okay with this? Like, what are you gonna do? Like, right now it's happening. It's happening.
And she's
Like,
gonna like
does she have
stand in
any
front of.
choice?"
She's gonna just jump in front of Maton's press conference. She's like, actually, it was Glenn Childs' task force, and he's the one who's running for DA. So vote against him. Yeah, I don't know what else she would have done in that situation. I do imagine like some like post credit scene where like Clarence is out of jail. She's like, "We did it, Clarence. We did it, honey. I got away with killing that cop." Like, yeah. We find out like Clarence was the one that actually did it. Like, you did it, baby. You got me out of jail
Oh my
on a,
gosh.
on a crime I totally committed. I just like I was there like how Tara was like, he is definitely not the person I saw killing. But I'm like, yeah, but what if he was? Like, what if he really was the person that did it? He just got away with murder at this point.
Well,
That's
yeah,
just
he
how
can't.
my twisted and dark mind works. What can I tell
Well,
you?
I mean, we've watched enough procedurals and things to, TV will
Yeah,
do that to you. TV will
yeah.
get your mind going in different ways. But that's where we end with Alicia here. Just a very straightforward episode, pretty linear. In it, like we didn't get any family stuff. We didn't get a lot of firm drama. It was just focused on Clarence Wilcox and his
This case.
his story and his case.
Yeah,
So
we took a little detour with the Alicia Peter like stuff, but but not too much. I did enjoy how during the Conjugal visit we got the Alicia's on the bed, Peter's on the ground. They hold hands for like a minute, and Alicia's like, "Okay, that's enough. Like that's all. That's all the affection I'm going to give you. That's all the affection you have earned now with your help." I wonder if Peter was just expecting maybe a little something more, like maybe a little something extra. I don't know.
well, and Peter totally planned. Like I get the privacy shower situation. He comes in and he's like, "Hey, can I have a shower?" But he also was like, "I think this will play well. Like I think this is going to
Mhm.
be like the first thing that I do." He could have taken a shower at any time, at any point in the long time till 6 a.m. that they had together. But his first move was like, "Hey, I'm going to go get in the shower."
I
Just
wonder
like,
if
"Okay,
like
bye."
ducked his head out like, hey,
Yeah.
Alicia, you want to
Yeah.
join me? She's like, no, Peter. I so like a super cut of all times that Peter tried to come on to Alicia. She's like, no, Peter, we're here to work, Peter. Come on, Alicia. No, Peter.
Well, that was it. We do want to thank Adam for writing in and talking about like whether Alicia is numb in these situations, like she's super calm in how she handles things as opposed to how creepy Carrie can get. We talked a little bit about how creepy Carrie can get, but do you have anything on the numbness of Alicia?
Yeah, I think Alicia is she's kind of like the Walking Dead in a way, right? She's walking through her trauma. She's walking through life while trying to deal with this like whole Peter situation. So she's not extremely expressive. She does get these moments like when like in this episode when she found out Kalinda went to go visit Peter. She's like, yeah, how many times you like don't ever visit my husband? Like, oh, we get like these kind of like damn moments from
Mhm.
Alicia. But I think for the most part, Alicia's trying to she's trying to stay she's trying to keep her fury at bay. You can tell sometimes she's like the fury is just simmering right under the surface, and she doesn't want to show up. She doesn't want to look like she doesn't want to look like the aggrieved wife. She doesn't want to look like someone that can't keep her stuff together. So I think it's kind of it's a real effort to kind of stay composed and stay at a certain level.
Yeah, and I think she feels the weight of the responsibility, right? Because like in this case, she is now taking care of everything for her family and also giving herself a chance at a life she didn't have because she married Peter. Like
Mhm.
she didn't go pursue her law career. She didn't go do all of these things. And so all of this hangs in the balance of her day-to-day life and of her work. So if she were to have a big expressive moment that could at this time really kind of shake things up because it would be unexpected. She's also, Will has said multiple times, like, this woman doesn't need to prepare. She just knows she can come in, she can be counted on, and things like that. So if she does anything to kind of change that in anyone's mind, it could kind of mess with what she's got going on.
And look, I mean, it's tough enough to be a woman in that field and be taken
Exactly.
seriously and be taken professionally, but also in the added baggage that Alicia has with going through this very, very public scandal. I think she owes it more to herself than not to make it look like just a water off a duck's back. She's like, listen, I'm going through this, but I'm gonna keep it 100. I'm gonna keep it professional. I'm gonna keep it right and tight. So she doesn't want to be seen to be like a hysterical woman. So she's gonna keep herself at a certain level to show that she's not really affecting her in the way that it actually is affecting her on the inside.
Well, and to be quite honest, we've seen more emotions out of Will than we've seen out of Alicia. He's
Truly, with all the upset, like as one moment this episode, he like throws all stuff off his desk, like, okay, well, like have you ever been in a moment like that where like I do understand the other probably some real moments. Have you ever been in a moment where like somebody threw stuff off a desk and like, frustration like that?
I have done it, but when no one else is around, but I have not been in front of someone else when that happened.
I'm very curious about that. I mean, these like TV trope moments. Like, who have we? Has anyone seen anyone actually do these things? Has anyone actually done this stuff? And you have done the desk clearing move, which I think is really kind of interesting. I want to hear more about that offline. But you're probably not gonna say on the pod, but I want to hear more about it offline about the desk clearing moment. I've never had one of those, but I would imagine it's very like interesting to have one of those moments. And Will definitely had one this episode.
I will just say it was not as dramatic as the Will one. It's more of a like push away, like get away from me than a "Wah!" type of
So
moment. Yeah.
yeah. Well, that's good to know. Good to know.
Yeah, just FYI. Yeah, it was still I was still me. But well, that's where we leave this episode, Jason. Is there anything you want the people to know? Do?
Listen, if you want to keep up with me on the Twitters, I'm on JAYR1085 on the Twitter. As far as other podcast projects, there's a little project that Marissa and I have recently completed. If anyone's interested in the show The Bear, we did cover all 10 episodes of season 3 of The Bear over on Whirlwind Podcast. If you search Whirlwind Podcast, you will find every episode. We covered it episode by episode, went into detail of every single episode, kind of like we do here for The Good Wife. So if you're interested in that, in our commentary on The Bear, go check that out, please.
Yeah, it was quite a journey. It was a fun little experiment of how fast can we podcast. So if you
Mm-hmm.
also want to hear some
Definitely did
unhinged
multiple
podcasting,
episodes. Yeah, did multiple episodes of watch the show, come back, watch the show, come back. All I think we did, what was our record? 4 in a day, I
or
think was our biggest podcast day. So it was a lot of fun to break down the show with Marissa. Marissa got to explain to me a lot of artsy fartsy
Mhm.
scenes about the bear and what they all meant. So if you want to see that, go check us out on Whirlwind Podcasts.
Yeah, it was fun. As for myself, you can find me on Threads and on Instagram at it's me, Marissa G. And if I'm up to anything fun and exciting, I will tell you at the link in my bio. That sounds like so weird to say, but I really don't know how else to do this because there's just so many different places on the internet. So if you're wondering what I'm up to, that's where to go. But
Yeah.
that's all I got, Jason.
Yeah. Until next time, stay good.